Even though I was told it's absolutely impossible, I literally started explaining to the ICU nurse how I would unparalyze myself in 100 days from emergency surgery. I had awakened into my true self. When we incarnate, we are many layers or frequencies and dimensions removed from the direct communion with the I Am. The I Am is God itself. EMI stands for ego, mind, identity. That is the character that we create through incarnation. The purpose of it is to have the full immersion experience of the lower frequencies of the physical universe. The multiverse is a multi-frequential, multi-dimensional hall of mirrors designed for self-mastery. This is the greatest thing ever invented. The collective consciousness is always working in order to bring about its own evolution. We are beginning to, and we will, once again, ascend the frequencies. But time doesn't actually exist. We choose distraction because we're not in alignment with ourselves. Where our attention goes, our energy flows. Where our energy flows, it grows. We are so distracted and so out of control because we are completely and utterly controlled. This is the truth. Let's get ready to be triggered. When I was a kid, I used to say to my parents and my friends that if I ever get sick, I'll just heal myself. So that's a fairly odd statement to make.
Audacious, yeah. Audacious, I
Yeah,
nod. Yeah.
yeah, bold, strange, right? So there was always a knowingness that is me or within me, however you want to say that. So that was always there, and I think if someone would have asked me, way back when, okay, how does that work? I definitely would not have been able to explain it, but I knew that I knew. So I guess we can now, with that context, we can kind of fast forward. I don't know, give away my age because I'm old. But fast forward, I don't know, 45, 50 years, I guess, give or take. And so April 23rd, 2016, I had been sick for several months. I mean, really, really sick. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital. I had sepsis. I had a myriad of things going wrong with me, but they had said they had figured out what was wrong and this and that. Well, the antibiotics that they were giving me, it didn't work because on April 23rd, 2016, my whole body just shut off. And I actually felt it from my chest down, literally my organs shutting down, just shutting off and everything just going numb. And I was immediately rushed to the hospital. They performed an emergency surgery called a laminectomy, where they shave off part of your vertebrae and then they scrape off the infection that had actually crushed my spine. And as you know, there's MRIs of my spine. You can actually see all this, see the doctor's notes. I woke up from surgery, and the only way to describe it is that I woke up in a state of full remembrance or full knowing, or what we could call authentic cosmic consciousness. And I literally started explaining to the ICU nurse in great detail how I would unparalyze myself, that I would be able to walk unassisted in 100 days, even though I was told it's absolutely impossible with the injury that I had, and that all these issues, all these life-threatening conditions and diseases that I've been diagnosed with, I'll have all of those resolved, and in 100 days, I'll walk unassisted, and everything will be taken care of. And that was filmed, that was documented, and that is exactly what happened. On the 100th day, I was able to walk once again, unassisted. All the signs of all these diseases chronic conditions that I was diagnosed with, not only was the paralysis gone, the issues were resolved. So there's no way to describe it, Amrit, other than a deep, deep remembering of something that you knew that you always knew. But it came back in crystalline clarity about the step-by-step process of putting a destroyed body back together, as well as what we would call self-realization or enlightenment, that it is a metaphysical process that anyone can undergo. And if we want to just draw an analogy, it's kind of like the caterpillar destroying itself in order to become what it really is. And so self-healing and self-realization or enlightenment, which are the same thing, are intrinsically connected. And in that moment of awakening from emergency surgery, I had awakened into my true self. The vestiges of my personhood had been destroyed along with my body. So instead of dying, I still remained in my body, couldn't feel my body. My body didn't work, but I was in that state of awareness. So it came back to me. It wasn't new. It wasn't what people call a download. It wasn't like I was given this information. I knew from the get go how to heal, as I remembered as a kid. I just didn't remember the specifics. So in that moment, it all came back to me. I started explaining how to do it, and obviously I did it. And then I wrote a book on the step by step process. And of course, I've helped too many people, thousands and thousands and thousands of people, to overcome the issues that they've had their whole life in ways that they didn't think was possible.
Can we bring into the frame in the conversation, and you can help us define these terms, the EMI and the IM? Because I think this becomes really important to sort of see which part of you came online and which part of you didn't come online anymore, or didn't not come in line, but like maybe right relationship occurred. What are these two different aspects? And then, yeah, maybe you can explain in those terms, coming out of the surgery, what had shifted.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the term that have been using, created, whatever, EMI stands for ego, mind, identity. And that's the character, that is the actor who performs actions. That is the character that we create through incarnation. So it is a conceptualized, belief based, body consciousness character that doesn't really understand where it comes from, doesn't understand what it is, and doesn't understand how it was created. And that's kind of how we go about our life, right? We get here. Who am I? How did I get here? What is the point? What is the purpose? All these great questions, right? So that is the culmination of all of our misperceptions, misunderstandings, and misidentifications that happen through the incarnation process. And from a purely physics perspective, the ego mind identity is the electromagnetic interference of all that we align ourselves with that is not our true signal. So the I am is what we actually are. The I am is the self with the capital S, the fractal of God that we are. It is whole and complete, and everything is birthed from the I am. Now, everything is not the I am directly, as the ego mind identity or the human character is not the I am directly, and self realization would be direct communion with your I am with no filter, with not looking through a dirty windshield of beliefs and concepts and ideologies and roles and so called knowledge. So, upon awakening from emergency life saving surgery, the delusion of the character that I was had been removed. It had gotten destroyed along with my body. My body was destroyed. So I was in a state of liberation, in a state of cosmic consciousness. It just so happens I was still here. And so the I am is just that. We are all the I am, but when we incarnate, especially within the lower frequencies of the physical universe, we are many layers or levels or frequencies and dimensions removed from the direct communion with the I am. The I am is God itself. It is where all of our joy, all of our talent, all of our abilities, all of our passion, all of our power, all of that comes from what we directly are and is reattuning the body mind complex to that signal, to the I am, is what self realization or enlightenment is. And from that state, there is nothing that is impossible. And so, doing the impossible, whether that's putting your destroyed body back together, parting the Red Sea, it doesn't really matter what it is. From that state, you can actually do anything. So, the I am is God directly, and the ego mind identity is this false character that gets created through descending the dimensions and frequencies into a physical incarnation within the lower frequencies of the physical universe. And then this character, it becomes the interface within this realm because the body mind complex is part of and attuned to the local environment. And so the ego mind identity and the character is all the electromagnetic interference that we have attuned ourselves to: information, concepts, beliefs, roles, ideologies, so called knowledge. All of these things cloud and masquerade as the true self. So the ego mind identity is personhood, and the I am is what we are.
What role does the EMI play then? Because everybody's obviously operating from the EMI majoritarily, and some people are aware of their IM, some people completely oblivious to it. It seems to be that the EMI seems to be this. all pervading, all prevailing sort of function.
Yeah, it's the mode of communication, really. It's we communicate one another through our character. It is the interface itself. As I said, the body mind complex is part of and attuned to this environment. This is why when you die, and no one dies, but when you die, this interface stays here and you don't, right? Because this is actually the biological garment that's part of and attuned to this environment. And so we actually identify with the suit itself, right? And then we identify with what the suit produces thoughts, emotions, sensations. And because we identify with the suit, we identify with the experiences that the body has. And so now we have created a character. Meanwhile, we exist prior to this, and we will exist after this. And so the ego mind identity, the purpose of it is to have the full, what I call the full immersion experience of physical reality, of the lower frequencies of the physical universe. So you temporarily, slide into a suit that is literally attuned to and part of this environment. So what it does is it just affords a level and a depth of experience that you can't get otherwise by adorning this biological spacesuit that's literally part of and attuned to physical reality.
It's interesting because you also said at where, well, maybe you need to give us some context as I ask this question, if that's okay. But we go through the different yugas and the different ages, and we're 330 years, in your opinion, out of Kali Yuga into the Dwapar Yuga. But you said, and we're in the ascending cycle there, and there's plenty I'm sure you can talk to in there. But you said even there was previous points where you talked about slipping in and out, and actually we could spend a lot more time in a body. It was our relationship with slipping in and out of bodies and EMI was very different in the different ages. In fact, people could live for like sounded like eons. Can you describe some of that, like in the different ages and the yeah?
Yeah. So maybe the context is that the fall of man is the fall in frequency. And so humanity used to operate in a much higher frequency. And because of choices that we've made, forces that we are not, from my perspective, not working with properly and optimally, we have descended the frequencies. And so as we descend the frequencies, the analogy I would use is like H2O, right? So when the temperature is coldest or when the frequency is densest, H2O is solid. It's ice, right? And everything sticks to it, right? Okay. So then as the temperature goes up a little bit, or as we start to raise in frequency, that same H2O is now water. So now it's different. It's a different state of being. It's not a solid, right? Everything doesn't stick to it. There's a fluidity to it. There's more of a lightness to it, right? A block of ice is pretty heavy, right? Okay. So then as we keep going up in temperature or up in frequency, it then turns to water vapor, then it turns to steam, and then you can't even see it anymore, right? But it's still H2O. So when we were operating, and it's still the exact same thing. So when we were operating in a much higher frequency, we were able to keep the physical vehicle pure. It wasn't low frequency like ice and everything stuck to it and developed disharmonious energies and disharmonious attachments. So therefore, the body mind complex could house true divinity, which is the I am, because it remained pure. And when we were existing in much higher frequencies, souls could incarnate into a vehicle and live hundreds of years, actually live thousands of years. So some of those stories in the Bible aren't really stories; they're actually specific accounts of lineage in terms of how long people could live, and that's absolutely true. When you're in a higher state, the body remains pure, and you're able to maintain it. And because we've slid down the frequencies or descended the frequencies, the body becomes heavier and denser, and it's more susceptible to injury. It's more susceptible to illness. It's more susceptible to everything, and this is why we get sick so easily. Why we can be quote unquote the body can demise so easily because of the density of the body itself. So, as I was saying a long time ago, that was not the case. But we are clearly availing ourselves of what it's like to descend the frequencies in order to go back up and ascend the frequencies.
Why do we descend the frequencies, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of reasons for that, but I would have to say choice. Now, I don't think humanity in general does not realize that everything is a choice. It doesn't. So the law of freedom is always in effect, always. Now we may say to ourselves, "I don't have a choice," right? But even saying that is a choice. So by saying I don't have a choice, we're actually proving the fact that we start from freedom and we're choosing to limit ourselves by saying I don't have a choice, right? So even that, right, as much as it's a kind of a mind bender, but it's still the truth, right? So Amrit, I would just say we give ourselves, even as a collective, right, we give ourselves certain experiences because there are very specific things that we can learn and evolve from those specific experiences that you can't learn and evolve from a different set of experiences. So we find ourselves here because of choices that we've made, the way that we've decided to operate in response to the environment and in response to the electromagnetic frequency that is always broadcast in the lower frequencies of the physical universe. Now we can, and we are beginning to, and we will once again ascend the frequencies, but we descend based upon choice. Even though we may say, "Well, we didn't have a choice; we were no nonsense." But now we're starting to realize a different level of consciousness, and that everything is actually a choice. That the law of freedom is eternal and immutable. Even the ability to say that I'm not free proves that you're free to choose to say that you're not free. So the same energy that you use to say I'm not free is the same energy that you would utilize to say that you are free, right? So we gave ourselves this experience out of the choices that we've made, and I believe humanity is starting to realize it can make different choices, and through the different understanding and the different choices, we will get different results. And I think that's about what's happening right now.
Inspired souls and lumen beings, I wanted to take a moment to thank all of you that are subscribed to this podcast. Everything you see around here is powered and empowered by your subscription to this channel. Thank you so much for your incredible love and support. To all of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do take a moment. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the button below is lighting up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution. Please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, and join the movement spreading love, positivity, wisdom, and clarity like this around the planet, touchwood, together. Thank you so much in advance for your support. It's interesting there as well because it seems like metaphysically it is kind of we've chosen this path and it's all our choice. And yet in the day to day, there does seem to be, I wish there was a better way to say this, but seem to be forces which are sort of vying for our attention and sort of, and I mean, there is probably a worthy question in there in terms of how much is that our choice as well versus how much are external influences actually, harvesting our attention as we're going through. And what are some of these vices and forces that are doing that to us and what are their agendas?
Oh, okay. That's a, that's a big question, but I would say that the collective consciousness is always working in order to bring about its own evolution, right? And within the collective consciousness, there will be aspects of the consciousness that are, I'll just be very general, that are going to be the bad guys, for lack of a better term, that are going to produce what I call evolutionary tension by pressing down. So the same way a diamond is formed, right? How is a diamond formed? Immense pressure on carbon over billions of years, and all of a sudden there's a diamond, right? Okay, so the I am and evolution kind of works in the same way. For us to pull back our Clark Kent outfit and to realize that we have a Superman costume. So if you see me do this, that's what I'm doing. So we give ourselves these challenges to call upon more of ourselves in order to evolve. So we actually, I know people don't want to hear this, but I don't really care. We call in these forces. We call in the bad guys, and all of us have a choice as to what role we want to play because the name of the game is evolution. And so even the dark serves the light, but we have to be aware of how this game is played. And I think for the most part, humanity doesn't really understand how this game is played. And they have an idea about how this game is played. But when you start to understand some of the eternal immutable laws of the universe, like the law of freedom, or like the law of love, or like the law of perfection, and these are things that are not talked about, these are things that are not understood. These are the things that I teach in class. When we start to understand how these things really work, we actually start to understand that this game was set up for us to master ourselves through playing this game. And self mastery is not a moving target that lies outside the self. So when our attention is upon something outside of ourself, we are distracting ourselves instead of having our attention on and within the I am itself. And when your attention is on and within the I am itself, that's what grows. And that's the key. So part of the game that's played here is to always be vying for your attention. So your energy is going outward and it's not focused on yourself. You're focused on things that you don't want in your reality. You're focused on preventing things that you don't want instead of focusing on putting all your attention, which is energy, on what it is that you want to grow. So as our attention gets harvested, we're kind of like a container, which is why when we're watching a scary movie, we get scared. It's like, well, how the hell is that possible? It's going on a screen or a TV. Why? Why? Because I'm watching something, I'm getting scared. It's because attention is energy. And what you put your attention on, you connect with energetically. And we are like a container. So whatever we're connected with, we actually experience. We then hold that frequency and emanate it, and then actually build and have the experience of what our attention is upon. And this is part of how reality is created. So the name of the game is vying for attention. Attention is the new oil because things are built through attention. And so if they can harvest people's attentions and our attention is on and we hold that frequency, we actually build that reality. And this is how dystopian timelines are actually built. These so-called prophecies and all this kind of stuff, they're user manuals for how to bring about these dystopian timelines because we're putting our attention on it, holding that frequency, emanating it, and then building it. So the new book, The Law of Attention, actually gives us the knowledge about how this actually works and how to harness our awareness, attention, and single pointedness of focus in order to create the reality that we truly desire and not to have our attention on something that we don't desire and then ultimately give that energy and power and grow that despite the fact that that's not what we desire to experience for ourselves.
I want to know more about like brings the viewer into some context around awareness, attention, and single pointed focusedness. But before we do that, can you, and maybe this segues into it, what are some telltale signs that someone's attention is hijacked?
Okay, the first one would be how long can you go without thinking? Right? Okay. For most people, not everybody, for most people, it's probably only a couple of seconds. Probably, right? And then some longer, whatever. Okay. But if you can't go without thinking, if you don't have control over yourself, then what does? Then who does? What that means is that your attention has been harvested and you have been programmed. If you can't control yourself, what is controlling you? If you can't have your mind clear and be present, then who's in control? You have been harvested. That's what that means. It means you're running programs. We are so distracted and so out of control because we are completely and utterly controlled. And that's what happens when your attention is on something long enough. You end up identifying with it and it seeps into your subconscious mind. And then with your subtle body and even parts of the gross physical body, it starts to become embedded within that. And then you carry that and then you run it like a program. So the best way to know if your attention has been harvested, how long can you stay present? How long can you go without thinking? And if it's not very long, then there's some work to do.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Thank you for that. It actually couldn't help but reflect on, and I know this is not super pertinent to this conversation, or maybe it is, but like the AI thing that's going on at the moment as well. People are just like chatting away to AI, and it's like it's a lot of thinking. It's just a lot of neural, back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And I mean, it just brought to light just the yeah, what we're actually participating in there in terms of like entrenching ourselves further into the EMI versus giving us space for the IM to emerge.
You got it. The AI is just adding layer upon layer upon layer of the matrix itself. And if we start to understand that, we'll start to view and work with AI very differently. But what we're doing is just adding layers to the illusion of the matrix itself.
So, how come such a prevailing force for adding, um, entrenching in sort of the matrix, let's put it that way, is presenting itself now when we are actually on the ascending arc, back through Dwapar into the ascension, that you were referring to before? Because that seems like quite an entrenching tool.
It is. Yeah, you are correct. So I would say that the more that we're on the upswing, so to speak, right, the more the evolutionary tension is put upon us. But that's really serving us to do this, to call upon more of ourselves. And that's really it, Emmerich. So evolution is that. Evolution is calling upon more of the self. We always equate it to like technology, and it can be, but it's not. It's about calling upon more of yourself, and as you call upon more of yourself, you'll be able to develop things like technologies. But it's the pressure that is key, right? Again, how is a diamond formed? Immense pressure that doesn't let up, right? So we get the best of the evolutionary tension, if you will, when we're on the most upswing, because that's when it counts the most. That's when it counts the most. That's actually when we get the most out of it. I know that sounds backwards, but that's when we get the most out of it, because when something is being pressed upon you, let's say that's holding back your business or holding something back, you will work harder to figure out a way to make it happen. That is exactly what you'll do, right? You won't be like, oh well, it's not meant. It's not meant. Oh, unless you're really delusional and so super spiritual that you think it has nothing to do with focus and effort or self-control and self-discipline. Well, that's a whole nother conversation. But you know that if things are not working out for you, let's I'm just using business wise, you're gonna grind and you're gonna figure out a way to make it happen. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. As this is happening to us, we are gonna have to do this. And that is the evolution of consciousness. And that's why it works. It's symbiotic. You don't have this. Does Superman ever do this if there isn't a problem to solve? Right? He'll sit back in his suit, right, and stare at Lois Lane. No, it's not so bad, right? But anyway, but this doesn't happen unless there's an issue. And so we need the evolutionary tension. We need the bad guys. And this is what it means that the darkness always serves the light. I mean, it's a lot more to it than that. But the evolutionary tension is important, especially as this. It's actually going to help us continue to pull back the suit and realize that the I am is within all of us, and that is the fractal of God. And nothing is going to stop that. No matter what is done, nothing is going to stop that. It's just going to be a matter of what that's going to look like. I guess you could say how long it's going to take, but there's no such thing as time. And in what way are we going to go about doing this, right? Are we going to go kicking and screaming, right? Are we going to go with all sorts of, we'll even say bloodshed? Are we going to go that way, right? Or are we going to go in a different way? And that is what I mean, is that it's always a choice. It's always a choice. So anytime we say I don't have a choice, we don't really realize what it is that we're saying. We don't even realize how free we are to even be able to say that. But without the evolutionary tension, without something going on, Clark Kent never pulls back his suit to reveal Superman.
It is a weird kind of spiritual maturity to
Yeah.
really feel into like actually all these forces that are vices that feel like they're weighing me down are actually testing my metal to actually forge a light within. Is that too poetic to put it that way? I mean, I don't know.
No, it's not. So if we look at it this way, Amrit, I like to keep things simple. So, because if it's complicated or difficult, I wouldn't understand. I wouldn't be able to do it. So we think it's about some special power or some super skill or some higher intuitive function. It's like, that's bullshit. I'll tell you what it comes down to. It comes down to two things, and it always comes down to two things: courage and determination. That's it. Those are the two things that are required, and nothing else. When you are not fearful, and when you ask yourself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Now you have your game plan. Nothing to figure out. Now you got your game plan. And then you take action upon that. And you don't let exterior circumstances force you into some state of capitulation and just giving up. The will is the single most important thing to develop. not skill, not information, not clairsentience, not clairvoyance. That's bullshit. The single most important thing is our will. Our will is tangible. We use our will for everything. It is our energy, our harnessed intention. Because we use it for everything, it only stands to reason. That's the single most important thing to develop. And with courage and determination, there's nothing that we can't create for ourselves individually and collectively.
Thy will be done. It's let's bring us back to awareness, attention, and single pointed focusedness because I think there is will sort of emanating all the way through this. Um, can you provide us some context on those three layers, please?
Yeah. So, as you know in the book, right, I talk about the law of attention and the three tiers of majesty, or what I call, just sounds cool, but the
All right.
three tiers of
It got
majesty.
me. It got me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what we have, Emmerich, what we have is we have, I'll just call it general awareness. We are aware, right? We are aware. We are awake. We are aware, right? Not awake in the bullshit way that we say I'm awake. Not that. We are we
Just a
are
quick question
aware.
about that though. Is that the same as there being consciousness? There is an awareness, or is there slightly difference between consciousness at large and awareness here?
Okay, I no, there is a difference, and so there's difference between consciousness, self-aware consciousness, and sentience, and these are various levels of energy graduating. So, in other words, I'll go on and on, as you know. So, in other words, really, what we're looking for is to be able to evolve ourselves through our own creativity, and that's when something becomes sentient, self-aware. Now, consciousness itself doesn't necessarily equate to it being able to evolve itself through its own creativity. So there's consciousness, there's self-aware consciousness, and there's sentient self-awareness, which is just that, evolving itself through its own creativity. So that's so, and there's all these different sort of demarcations within those things. But once you become sentient and self-aware, then you are literally consciously evolving yourself through your own creativity. And clearly, that's where the sentience that temporarily houses a human vehicle or an alien vehicle. That's the level of sentience that is within us, or that we are, I should say. Okay, so when we talk about the three things that actually create reality, what we have is the fact that we are awareness itself, right? The I am. It's not exactly accurate, but it's something for the mind to work with. If you could think of the I am, Amrit is like an eyeball awareness, right? Now, woven into the very screen of our consciousness is our depth of sentience. There's no thinking required. It's there. So we are this awareness, and woven into that screen really is our depth. Our depth of love and wisdom, who subsets our talents and abilities, to be specific. Right? Okay. So that's awareness. And that's what we are. Now we can harness and focus that. We can harness general awareness to attention, right? Like Amrit, you have my attention. So my attention is on you. And as I'm speaking, your attention is on me. And now we are connected energetically. And that's where we can feel things pass between us and these kind of things. When I'm emanate, you pick up, and vice versa. So we go from this general awareness to attention to single pointedness of focus. So you could think of single pointedness of focus as supreme concentration. Now, supreme concentration, or same thing, or single pointedness of focus, harnesses all the power of the mind into one single thing. So if you go from awareness, attention to single pointedness of focus, what it is that you are concentrating on or focusing on, that one thing has far greater potential into coming into the reality or manifesting in the way that you desire, because all of your power of your mind and all of your attention is focused on this one single thing. When we master awareness, attention, and single pointedness of focus, and I said master, when we master these three things, we will literally be able to create reality out of so-called thin air. And don't just take my word for it if you don't want to. You can actually look up a declassified, if you're interested, you can look up a declassified CIA document where they have done extensive testing on just what I'm talking about. They don't call it awareness, attention, and single pointedness of focus. I forget what they call it, to be honest. But they did talk about that holding a very specific focus, single pointedness of focus, holding it for 17 seconds. What they have deemed, it's a little longer, by the way, but they have deemed that if you hold an image, a feeling, something specific in this supreme focus after 17 seconds, and they're mostly right, the energies start to coalesce and take the shape of your concentration. You literally start to materialize this into physical reality. But it's a little longer than 17 seconds. There's a little more to it. But there literally is, I can't remember what it's called, and it doesn't really matter. Just read my book. But they say 17 seconds. It's a little longer than that. But when we work with that, I think that's chapter 2 or chapter 3, I don't remember, we will actually realize, and it's the truth, we can create reality out of so-called thin air when we understand awareness, attention, and single pointedness of focus. I shouldn't say understand it. When we master it, we'll be able to create reality at will.
It goes pretty deep because you, in the book, bring us into this awareness that potentially we even choose, or our I think it's put in the way that our inability to master attention is the root cause of death, rebirth, etc., etc.
Yeah,
Can you
literally.
unpack that a little bit? Because that
Yeah,
sounds
I
intense.
can. It is. It is. So I want to think of an analogy that's easier. Our attention has been on the idea of life and death, the concepts, and that's all they are, concepts. Consciousness is eternal. Life and death are just concepts. It's really all they are. They only happen in your mind. So, but we have been so focused on so-called death. We've believed in it for so long. Our attention has been on it for so long that we have actually adhered ourselves to it, and we now actually truly believe that that is required. And it's because we don't have control over our attention, our awareness, attention, and single pointedness of focus. That, as an example, just as an example, right? Paramahansa Yogananda, who left his body, he did not die. He left his body at 59 years of age, and he announced to everybody, he was giving a lecture, and he announced to everybody that my time is done. Much more eloquently than I'm saying it, but he announced to everybody, literally in real time, and he wasn't sick and falling down and whatever, right? There was no death process. There was no death process. He said he was done. He was full of gratitude for being here, and I'm finished. And he moved away from the podium, and his body just collapsed, and he completely left his body. Now, they didn't know what to call that. They said he died of a heart attack, but he showed no signs of a heart attack, and his body didn't decompose for a long time. So for him, a supreme being, as the other masters are, a supreme being, he realized his attention is not upon death. His attention is on his own self-mastery, and therefore he transcended death. All he did was leave his body. Saint Germain, the Count of Saint Germain, right? The ageless alchemist. So he never went through a death process either. He had mastered teleportation. He just left. There was no death process. You're not going to find his body anywhere. He just left with it. So this is what I mean. These are masters, but that's okay, right? So if when we learn how to focus our attention on what it is that we desire to experience for ourselves, we can move past the concepts of life and death. We can literally transcend the concepts of life and death. That does not mean that incarnations don't have a beginning and an end. They do. But what this does require is putting our attention on what gives birth to beginnings and endings, just as the ageless alchemist has done and continues to do, and what Paramahansa Yogananda has done, and other masters have also done that. We can all do this, but we have to be working with ourself directly in a very different way. And in order to do that, we have to take our attention away from the fear of death. And then when we transcend that, I got a feeling we're going to start seeing lots of people doing this.
It seems like we need to learn to work with our attention. I mean, that's
Mm.
poignantly obvious. But there's also this, you said will is sort of this underwriting current that we really need to develop. Um, yeah, how do we start to develop our will?
Okay. Well, it's a great question. And like I said, the will is the single most important thing to develop, not so-called knowledge. That's just bullshit. That's what that is, by the way. If anyone's wondering, it's bullshit. There's only one knowledge, knowledge of self. And you can't learn that in a book or in class or in school, right? Okay. So how do we harness the will? Very simple. Very simple. Whatever promise you make to yourself, you keep it no matter what. And then you expand upon it. It's so simple. Everything is simple, Amrit. Everything. Once the mind is out of the way, everything is simple. So it is, and this is some of the exercises that I have people do in classes and courses. I said, make 3 promises to yourself, and I don't care what they are. They can be as mundane as I'm going to clean out the closet that I've been putting off for 6 months, right? I'm going to reorganize my desk because it's a friggin' mess and I know I need to do it, but I just keep putting it off. So things like that. This is not like I need to find the cure for cancer, which we've had 20 times. So these are just everyday mundane things. Make the promise to yourself and then you do it that day, no matter what. And you give yourself no justifications and no excuses as to why you didn't do it. It's as simple as that to develop your will. If you do that, even for a couple of days, try it, Amber. Make yourself 3 and like I said, small promises. Not I'm going to write a book today. I'm not talking about that. 3 promises, but you make sure you do it. You complete them every day, all 3. By day 3, and you've completed day 3, you will feel like Superman because you're starting to tap into the indomitable will, as El Moria, Sri Yukteswar would talk about endlessly, and Master R, right? That's how you do it. It's as simple as don't break your word. So what we want to do, and that is what will develop your will, because every time you make a promise to yourself and you don't keep it, these are tiny, and we think there's nothing to it. Oh, I said I would sweep out the garage, but I'm tired. My back hurts, right? So every time we make a promise to ourselves and we don't keep it, this is a tiny defeat to the will. Now, over time, in one case, it seems like it's inconsequential, right? But over time, all these little defeats to your will add up. And I got news for you. When you're actually finally faced with a big challenge, you'll already be defeated because you're so used to capitulating. So the simplest thing, start with 3 things, very mundane, complete them on that day, no matter what. Then do it the next day, and then do it the next day, and watch the tangible feeling of your own power will be back in your hand. And it's as simple as following through on the promises that you make to yourself.
Yeah, I remember some years ago I was studying a little bit of neuroscience to prepare for some of the podcasts, and there was this thing that military people in particular are known to do, which is they don't map out an entire series of like the entire mission in their mind to execute upon because anything can go wrong and they end up eroding their own self-esteem and self-belief if they don't hit all the points. So their day to day when they retire is make myself a glass of orange juice, go sit down, have the glass of orange juice, read the paper, and they'll read the paper. And I remember at that time, I was like, having a tough time going to the gym all the time and stuff like that. And I had to go through this process of like, stop saying you'll go to the gym and just start there. Right? Just start there. Just stop, which is counterintuitive because there almost seems to be this will, which kind of is like, come on, this is good for you, get going and stuff like this, right? Touch wood. Then we feel like it's coming from a good place, but actually, in some, well, to the point in this conversation, it's doing more harm than good. Those broken promises to the self.
Yeah, and then you no longer can depend upon yourself. And if you can't depend upon yourself, you're defeated, you're lost. And that's what this is about. We want to become the one person that everyone can count on, starting with yourself. That's the key. And by the way, that's a real leader. That's a real teacher. That's what it's like. Their word is their bond. They don't break it. And if we start doing this with ourselves, the success, whatever your definition of success is, doesn't matter. I think it's personal happiness. But whatever your definition of success is, if you have developed your will, it will carry you through any circumstance. It makes your soul more pliable, and more adaptable to any circumstance. So, like I said, it doesn't matter what the challenge is. You're used to succeeding. You're used to following through because it doesn't matter how you start. It only matters how you finish. And it's the will is what gives you the ability to finish, not to start 10,000 things and finish none of them, feel like shit about yourself. And that then just bleeds into every aspect of your life. And then you can't even count on yourself. And if you can't count on yourself, and if your word means nothing, then you're nothing. And that's why this is so important. That's why a long time ago we didn't have contracts. We didn't have anything like that because we operated more in the way that I'm talking about. Your word meant everything. We didn't need to sign a piece of paper. You gave your word to somebody. That was it. That was it. And by the way, that's the greatest thing my earthly father taught me in this life. We didn't have the best relationship. That is for sure. But if my dad said he was going to do something, oh, for fuck's sake, he would absolutely do it. I knew when he said, hey, son, I'll be there. I'll pick you up. I'll be there. Or if he said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll take care of that for you. He meant it. And I could count on him 100%. That's the single greatest gift I feel my father has given me. If I say something, I'm going to do it. Period. So I can count on myself. And what that means is those around me can count on me as well.
It goes pretty deep in the Eastern traditions as well because there's 3 different types of karma, and verbal, is momentary karma that we accrue all the time by saying things, and we're actually setting off all different courses of actions just through words. And this is why a lot of I imagine this is part of why a lot of the yogis take these vows of silence because they're just trying to wipe their hands clean of some of the karma that's being generated, right? To just not have to participate in at least one of the limbs of karma.
Well, okay, I think karma is 100% truth in that, and I'll talk about it for a second. Karma is not exactly that. That's a word that we are using without total tangible clarity as to what that is. Karma is addiction or attachment to things, right? So a karmic cycle happens, or the samsara, or this wheel of keep doing. The reason why we can get stuck is because we're sticking ourselves, I guess, or getting ourselves stuck. It has to do with our energy being attached or addicted to something. And if once you're like Spider-Man shooting his spider web to a building, once he shoots a silly analogy, but once he shoots his spider web to the building, he's stuck to that building. He's not going anywhere. So when we become addicted to anything, we're now stuck to that thing and now we're not going anywhere. And that actually, metaphysically, is what karma is. What we're really talking about is more about cause and effect. They don't want to give birth to any notion that they are not completely and utterly responsible for. So, in other words, they don't want to say something and not completely and utterly follow through on it. So, therefore, they don't say anything. They're not creating cause and effect for themselves. And that's really what that's about. Because everything that we give birth to, every notion, every utterance that we give birth to, we have to then be on the receiving end of it to really understand our power as a total creator. It's one thing to give birth to any notion and we're giving it to our friend, our wife, or whatever, right? But it's another thing to give birth to something and then realize what it's like to be on the receiving end of what you just gave birth to. So that's the law of cause and effect. And there are traditions of discipline where they don't engage in creating endless cause and effect for themselves. And one way to do it is to simply shut up.
I'm nervous asking a question now.
I can't help myself. I can't help myself, Amrit. Sorry.
Better choose my words wisely here. Well, let's go. Yeah. So back to will, back to attention,
Mhm.
because we've cleared up that, yeah, it's important to, will's this incredible driving force and not to make commitments and promises to fundamentally to ourselves that we can't. And that will help develop this incredible will. That seems like step one. And then from there, we've got this process of, okay, we've got a bit of a will. But then even then, sometimes I'm sure there's like all these forces. Like I'm just picturing people doom scrolling in some way. I don't know why that's the example that's coming up, but it is in my mind. And then like even with that will, it's like people understand like how to hijack likes, like dopamine and stuff like this, and then your will's kind of been put into service, into this agenda that's on the other side of something else. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of what's at play there, and how do we refine and course correct our will there?
Well, we choose distraction because we're not in alignment with ourselves. If we were authentically in alignment with ourselves, we would put our attention on what it is that we want to create, the life that we desire for ourselves. So if we're not completely in alignment with our true self and we're a bit disconnected and we're in our ego mind identity, the ego mind identity is always in search of something, whether that's peace or excitement or entertainment or whatever. So the ego mind identity is always seeking because it can't be at peace. So it's the ego mind identity that is scrolling, right? The true self is whole and complete as it is, and it only puts its attention on what it is that it wants to express and therefore create. So the true self, when in real alignment, we would never doom scroll. We would never put our attention on something that we don't desire to manifest. So, in other words, a real master only thinks about what it intends to manifest. It never puts its attention, which is energy, on anything other than what it intends to manifest. And that self control and self discipline and alignment with the true self is almost the definition of a master. They have conquered personhood. So, in other words, they are in control of themselves. They're in control of their attention. They only put it on what it is they desire to experience and create for themselves. And someone who's in alignment, true alignment with themselves, would never doom scroll. That's just a signal that we're not putting our attention on the life that we want to create, right? So we would never do that. So if we find ourselves doom scrolling, mostly it's out of habit, right? There's something about our life that is unpalatable, and we're looking to a way to get out of it or to escape or to find something or to see something or to filter reality in order to affirm our identity, which is mostly what doom scrolling is, simply filtering reality to affirm your sense of self already. So you come across something, see, I knew that guy was a bad guy, I knew that candidate was a bad guy, I knew that politician was a bad guy, or, oh, I knew that politician was great, I knew that politician was going to, or whatever it is, right? It's just constantly filtering reality to affirm our identity, but that's the false character. So the I am doesn't do that. The I am only puts its attention on what it is that it desires to manifest for itself. So
Some
yeah,
oh,
go ahead. Go ahead.
well, some people jump in here at this point and say, I've jumped in, but some people jump in at this point and say, well, you know, I don't want to not watch the news because I don't want to bury my head in the sand either.
Mhm. Mhm.
What do you say to that? Is it
Oh,
because I can feel you're saying it's like to stop giving your attention to it because it's like focus on the things that you specifically want to target and
yeah,
not target, but do you know what I mean? Like is naturally emerging as a source of your will. But then it's like it's like this is what's going on in the world. And people are coming from a good place. They want to try and be informed.
yeah.
So there's an activist in some people. So yeah, there's a bit of a
Oh,
soup of a thing here.
yeah. No, that's a great question. But informed is influenced. So I think we need to stay away from the idea of I want to stay informed. You're just going to be influenced. So this is how I would or what I do, if that's helpful. Uh, my wife laughs at me, but the first thing I do in the morning is when I get my phone. I shouldn't say the first thing I do is get my phone, but in the morning when I first am awake, have coffee first. Double espresso, that's first. Okay, anyway, but I get my phone, right? The first thing I do, I don't check text messages, I don't check emails, I don't do that. I look at my weather app. That is the first thing that I do because I like to see what the prediction is. It's just a forecast, right? But to see what the forecast is for the weather, right? So, I mean, are we going to get thunderstorms, or we get tornadoes here in Arkansas, by the way? We're going to get a tornado, or whatever, right? So I look at the weather map and I see, okay, a small chance of rain, or whatever, or this or that. Okay, that's enough. So if I see that there could be a thunderstorm today and maybe I'm going to be running errands, I'll make sure that I have something that I can wear that is rainproof, and I'll have my umbrella in my car. That's the end of it. That's it. So I just want to know, so in case there's bad weather, I'm already prepared. If we did the same thing, if we just got a certain level of what's going on and then stop. Stop. That's enough. Don't obsess over it. Don't identify with it. I don't check my weather app every 10 minutes after that. I checked it once. That's enough. So I know there's a, making it up, a 50% chance of rain. Okay, I'll get my weather gear and I'll get my umbrella. And now I don't have to think about it. So that's how I see, and to me, it's just common sense, right? If we understand certain laws are about to be passed, or lockdowns are coming, or the dollar is about to crash, or whatever the hell it is, right? Or they're getting rid of the IRS, or whatever, right? Okay, I got that. That's enough. Now let me focus on my life. Let me focus on what it is that I want to create for myself. Period. This obsessing and this identifying is the issue. But it's also like you said, you don't just, well, I'm so spiritual that I don't ever pay attention to the news. Well, that's foolish. That's absolutely foolish. You will have no idea what's going on in your local environment if you didn't just tune in and just to see what's going on, right? I'm so spiritual, I never look at the weather. Well, why wouldn't you look at the weather? What if it's going to be a terrible thunderstorm later? You're going to be caught in the middle of it, totally unprepared for it. Maybe you don't even want to go out at 2 o'clock because that's when the storm's going to hit. So it's common sense. It's the obsession, right? It's the identification. This is when the needle goes in the wrong direction. We want to put our attention on what it is that we want to grow. At the same time, we want to be aware of what is going on in our local environment, because if we don't, it'll be to our own detriment. And that's really what that's about. It's just common sense.
Hey there, Inspired Souls. Spirituality is not something we just talk about here at the Inspired Evolution. It's something we live and breathe with our entire beings. Whether it's in your career, your life, the way you lead in the world, or your relationships, it's at the heart of the way we believe life should be lived. And so if you're feeling out of alignment, or you can feel that there's something more, or you're feeling like you're not thriving in life, touch wood, the way that you ought to be, then we've got guidance to take you even deeper. You've got support from me one-on-one, and you've also got a like-minded, like-hearted community masterminding, master-hearting together through guidance together. And you don't have to take my word for it. This is how people all over the world have transformed through guidance.
Everything just kind of fell into place, and now I'm on a path that I actually believe in and I'm excited about, because I feel like I'm becoming my best self.
Over those 2 years, I have done so much. I can't believe where I am now. I'm thrilled where I am now. Not only was he a coach, but he became a divine presence in my life.
You can show up to Amrit with all sorts of chaos in your life, and you leave feeling completely centered with some direction that is going to get you results. It's just magic. When you're in coaching with Amrit, you just flow with it all.
I feel that I have access and connection to somebody who is deeply entrenched in my development.
If you're thinking about it, just do it. You won't regret it.
So what are you waiting for? If you feel the call, then join me on a call. amritsandhu.com/call. Link on screen now, and also at the top of the description in the show notes below. Join me in a call. Let's dive in deep to your path, onwards, upwards, and inwards from here. I'm looking forward to seeing you in a call. Go on, I'll see you there. There's a piece in there for me which I've been leaning into when people do ask me this question. I refer to resourcedness, and I'd love to get your thoughts on that, because there are certain times where I feel like I'm more resourced internally, like I'm more centered, I'm, well rested, and, I've got a bit of bandwidth to be able to be like, oh yeah, that's what's going on in the world, and that doesn't have to be a story about me, and I can understand and appreciate and then, inform myself, and then, and I will be influenced, but because I'm resourced, I don't get pulled off my center. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to, there are times where I'm tired and, I've got young kids and there's a lot going on, touch wood, on that front at times. And it's just like, actually, I don't have the bandwidth to just tune into that right now, because taking on that at the moment is just, it's actually, I'm vulnerable, not so vulnerable, but like I'm vulnerable to coming off my center by like going, really like going, what's going on in that part of the world? Wow. And it's like, actually, is that really my, so I lean into this conversation sometimes around resourcedness for an individual in terms of where they can expend a little bit of extra attention or not. I mean, in this conversation, I'm conscious that attention is really sacred currency, is really what is at the heart of it. And we probably shouldn't be expending anywhere we don't want to, but this resourcedness gives me some permission sometimes to be like, actually, I need it all for me at the moment, or sometimes going, actually, I've got a little bit to share. Your thoughts on my positioning around that?
I think that's a very wise way to operate. I mean, that shows a level of self-awareness. You realize, for whatever reason, you're a bit depleted, right? It's like, well, okay, well then, now's not the time. right? Now is just not the time. I don't literally have the resources to do that. Or other times you're leveled up and you're like, hey, let's go. I'm ready. I can handle that, and that because I feel level. So absolutely, that actually that shows true wisdom. That shows a level of self-awareness
There is
without question. Yeah.
there is an interesting thing about that though, is like that's come from some practice of maturity because I've noticed what used to happen was when I was tired was the time where you were most susceptible to the dopamine hits.
Yeah.
You know, because that's also like, and so it's like, oh, I'm tired. It's like, oh, maybe I could just like, distract myself out of all of this state. And then you end up in these really, and this sort of comes back to what we were saying before in terms of some of these forces that are at play, keeping us in these places potentially where we're not fully resourced and fully centered. We're easier, I don't want to say we're easier to hijack, but it's just an easy way to sort of describe in simplistic terms, into these spaces where our attention can actually be harvested. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Well, think about the term or the saying paying attention. Think about what we're saying. Paying attention.
That
Right?
sacred currency thing, yeah.
There is an energetic cost. Paying attention. Are you paying attention? Right? It's like, so think about those words. Yes, it is actually our life force. Where our attention goes, our energy flows. Where our energy flows, it grows. Period. There's no escaping that. Right? The law of attention is one of the eternal and immutable laws. So we have to understand that our attention is our life force, where it's going. Absolutely, 100%. And when you're aware, when we never really want to put our attention where there is, and my second book, Change Your Mind, talks about this, where I developed an energy diagnostic system, which is just another cool word for or cool saying of way to measure, right? Just a way to measure the ROI on what you're putting your attention on. Right? Because a lot of us will say, I'm not sure if this relationship is really good for me. I'm not really sure if this job is right for me, or I'm not really sure if this activity that I doom scrolling or whatever activity is really good for me. So there's a set of questions that we can ask ourselves about the type of return on investment of our energy. And all you got to do is just answer the questions that are written out, and you'll start to understand, okay, am I getting a positive ROI on the debit of your attention? Because you're paying attention to certain things. What is the ROI on the paying attention to this thing? When we start to understand attention is currency, it's our life force. We use our attention, which is our energy, for everything. We have to be supremely mindful with self-control and self-discipline over where we're putting our attention. If we start to do this, this planet can change overnight. Because attention is energy. If you don't give certain things let's use a relationship, right? You have kids, right? You have a wife, right? So I bet if you started going out to a job, out to work, out to the office, right, Amrit? And then when you came home, you just ignored your wife, right? You paid no attention to her, right? You walk in, honey, and you just walk right past her, right? And you give her and the
There'd be
relationship.
lots to pay, Rajay.
This is what I'm saying.
Sorry, I couldn't
Right.
help myself.
So, because attention is energy, if we don't give those that we love and what it is that we love and what it is that we want to grow, if we don't give it attention, it withers and dies. Now, that works both ways, right? With the relationship that we want to have, but it also works well. I don't want this element in my life. Whatever that element is, or this person, or that element, or whatever it is, take your attention off of it. If it doesn't get your attention, it's not getting any energy. It can't be sustained. Eventually, it will wither and die. Now, take this further with your own personhood, your own ego, mind, identity, and how that relates to meditation. The I am is meditation. So if we remove putting attention on the thoughts and the emotions and the story that we keep telling ourselves over and over again, and we stay present, and you could think of staying present as just simply being in meditation, simply being present. If you do that long enough, guess what? Your ego, mind, identity will wither and die. So it works for everything. Attention is the key. That's why I wrote a whole book on it, because it's so important. We don't really realize how powerful it is. Attention is energy. So put your attention on what it is that you want to grow, but don't take your attention away from everything to your own detriment. And that's why I use the analogy. Just check the weather, right? Is there going to be a tornado today? Like, Just be aware, and after you know, that's enough. Now move on. And it's the same thing with world events. Never occupy your mind with something that you can't control. So why would we occupy our mind? It's like, okay, it could rain. I'll just bring my jacket and I'll get my umbrella. I'm done now. I'm done with it. I don't have to put any more attention on it, right? And if we just start to apply that and put all of our attention, all of our focus on ourself and not our story, this is what grows. The I am unfolds. And the I am unfolding is the evolution of consciousness itself.
This dropped in for me a little earlier in the conversation. I was hoping to get it corrected a little bit, if it needed correction. It seems like the will is actually a faculty of the I am in many ways, and attention is actually like a lens within the EMI where we can learn to sort of orient the will. Am I getting it right, or am I off by a degree or two?
Okay, you're right there. Okay, so let's look at it this way, without me going on and on, which is really hard for me to do. Okay, so remember I said, think of the I am as an eyeball, right? Which is not true, but it works as something for the mind to work with. Okay, so the I am is awareness, right? And then woven into the very screen of your awareness literally is your depth. It is your depth of, you would say it's your depth of self-realization. It's your depth of love and wisdom who subsets into talents and abilities. Okay, now the point is that without being given a body or complement of energy, that I am is inert. Does that make sense? So this is why I believe it was the first book, I don't remember, I talked about that the word soul, to me, is inaccurate because we've kind of lumped these things together. Like we've lumped the I am, our wisdom, our intelligence, and our energy. It's all one thing, and that's it isn't. Upon deep introspection and total detachment and losing your mind, you can actually see these things. They're completely separate. They're two separate things that work together. So the I am, awareness, attention, single pointedness of focus, and woven within the screen of that consciousness is our depth, is our love and wisdom. The energy that we use is given to us, our body of energy, which includes our physical body and our subtle body of energy. It's the life force that we have for an incarnation, and it is a finite amount that can be manipulated, but it's a finite amount. That's what our will is. Our will is our energy, and it becomes our willpower when our energy is fixed on something. It's like, that's why I say I'm going to use my willpower and I'm going to do this, whatever it is, right? But they're two separate things. Because the I am without energy is literally inert. We would all just be sitting here and nothing happening. So it's the energy that can be commanded by the I am, by the sentience. But they are two separate things. And this also helps us not identify with the physical body and with experiences and with phenomena like thoughts, emotions, bodily sensations. It's very easy to start to see these things as separate when we understand the truth. Therefore, we won't identify with every thought because, well, that's me. I'm the energy and I'm the this. No, it's not. It's not true, right? So the I am is the awareness and the depth, and it's given a body of energy and a subtle body of energy, and then the life force that we have to actually create with. So they're two different things, but the key is to be able to attune this body mind, right? Not to the electromagnetic interference that's out here, the beliefs, the concepts, the ideologies, the information, right? And just being pulled in every single direction. The key is to attune this body mind directly to who and what you are. And now what's happening, you have complete command of the physical body and your subtle body of energy and your life force to be in tune with who and what you actually are. Now this matrix has no effect on you. Now you can walk right through this place and it doesn't even touch you, right? But they are, Amrit, they're two separate things that, I'll use the words, need each other, and that's not accurate. But right, the I am without energy is just, right? And energy without the I am is just this, right? So you put them together and you got you and me.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Yeah,
Sure.
it's quite the masculine and feminine dance as well. It's almost like you've got this attention. I see it as like this circular sort of thing, and there's got this drive and this. Yeah, it's really Really beautiful. Thank you so much for that. In your book, you talk about 4 anchors that actually anchor things. And interestingly, and we'll get into this hopefully, there was a 5th and then you took it out. So there are 4 things that anchor the EMI in this way. And maybe you can explain them: time, the EMI itself, knowledge, ownership. Can you speak to each of those and sort of mean what you mean by the things that anchor our human consciousness by way it gets imprisoned?
Yeah. Yeah, literally. This is what create that's the best way I could say that. Those 4 anchors, we are imprisoning our consciousness by using time, EMI, ownership. These are the things that, but we are doing this to ourselves.
By identifying with them or of them and
Yeah.
to them and stuff like this, yeah.
Well, in and of themselves, they don't really exist. They're temporary illusions. Ownership is a complete and utter facade. Whatever you think you own owns you. You don't own anything. You didn't even create you. Your higher self did. There's no such thing as ownership. It is a complete and utter charade, right? And if you really look deeply at the things that you think you own, you taking it with you? And did you come here with it? Then what the fuck do you own? Right?
Yeah.
Nothing. Zero. Zero, right? So ownership, my friend, right? It doesn't exist. If we look deeply at these things, and I have, ownership doesn't exist, right? Time. Let's look at time, right? Time, it's thinking that creates the illusion of time and the delusion of knowledge. And it's through thought that humanity locks itself in time. If you took out, I know this is bizarre, but it's still true. If you took out the past future, which is what thinking is, right? So thinking locks yourself into a linear process. Thinking locks yourself into A, and then B, and then C, and then D, right? That and that's how we experience reality, through the thinking mind. But that's not what reality is, though. That is a grand reduction, because everything is happening right now. All of it is happening right now. So without thinking, we don't produce time. And without time, you would actually realize that you are connected to and part of everything right now. Now, when you realize that, we would be evolving ourselves. I hate using this word. We would be evolving ourselves in a quantum way, because that means such bullshit for so many people. But it wouldn't be linear. Amrit, that's what I mean. We wouldn't go through this A and then B and then C. Yeah, but the beginning and the end is right here. Right? But it's thought that traps us in time. It's thinking that traps us in time and creates the delusion of knowledge and the illusion of time. Time doesn't actually exist. Literally. It's just not there, right? And the ego mind identity, right? That is a fake character. That is all the easiest way to say it. The ego mind identity is all the electromagnetic interference that we have aligned ourselves with that is not our true signal. So all the beliefs, all the concepts, all the roles, all the ideologies, all the so-called knowledge, all the stuff that we then lay claim to via ownership, and then create vanity, right? And then the summation of all of that is our ego mind identity. Meanwhile, none of it is you. And this again traps human consciousness into these tiny little prisms of linearity, of thinking, of time, of ownership, of a fake character. None of these things are actually what we are. They are all low frequency delusions and distractions that we misperceive, misunderstand, and then misalign ourselves with. And this is how we trap ourselves. From my perspective, this is how we trap ourselves in lower consciousness, in the lower realms, through those things. And the one that I took out that was going to be in there, because I've been teaching for the last year or two, because I've been teaching I guess you could say the remedy or the solution to is money. Absolutely. Money is to me, is a way that can be used to trap ourselves, but I've been teaching enough people that it's actually just the opposite, that it is a tool of liberation, that it's just energy. And that if you look truly deeply, if you look deeply at money, you'll realize it is innocent of everything you've ever accused it of. And once you understand that, you'll start to realize how sensitive, because it's energy, everything's energy, you'll start to realize how sensitive money is to your emanation. And once you start to understand that money is simply sensitive and reacts and responds to what it is that you emanate, you'll realize it's not a limitation in any way, shape, or form. And it doesn't actually hold you down. It's all the qualities and power that you give, that you attribute or give to money, but you're giving it to them. So that's why and like I said, I teach multiple courses on that. And now I might as well say it, right? I'm going to have my own show on a major streaming service next year, and the focus is the mechanics of money. I'll be teaching how this actually works. And it's so effective and so truthful and so authentic that everyone is going to be able to learn to. They'll be able to turn into the TV show. But that was one of the ones that was going to be one of the anchors that holds down, that we choose to hold down our consciousness with. But it wouldn't make any sense if I kept it there and then teach courses on how to transcend it and work with it properly. So I removed it.
And there's a piece in there around, can I take your example of this, this major streaming network and your upcoming, because one of the pieces is a genderless drive that emerges in this book. And I think before we get to there, maybe you can bridge us along on the journey, because I think that's a really foreign concept for just about everybody listening to this podcast. Yeah. And most of the people listening to this podcast I'm very humbled at how aware most of the people are. And then on the way to there, I think before we dive all the way there, we've been discussing what sort of traps us, but also the thing that, how do we get out? And it's like from having read the book, I've got this awareness that it's actually orienting your attention, and awareness is this really powerful and back hinges on that thing you referred earlier to the podcast, which is choice. You've got this thing which is sacred, which is choice. But yeah, because for some people it's like, okay, do I just not pay attention to that? Which is one way of going about it, but actually you're always going to be paying attention to something, it seems like, right? Maybe you can speak to the antidote in terms of what is it that we focus on, and then this agendaless drive, because then it's like you're paying attention, but then, there's this part which really got me, is like you lumped distractions, cravings, addictions, and goals and achievements together in them. So I know that's like a really big Amrit style question, just lumped over the fence to RJ, but do you mind me chucking that grenade at you? And you could just sort of unpack and put all the pieces back together for us?
Yeah, that's part of why I love you, Amrit. Okay. So, because I don't do interviews anymore, as you know. So
I know, I honestly, and thank you so much. I feel really honored that you agreed to be here. Thank you.
No, you're genuine. That's why I'm doing this, because you're genuine. Okay. So, all right, yeah, there was a lot there. Okay. So so this agendaless drive, this is like, it's like, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Agendaless drive, right? Oh, okay. So really, what we're talking about, and this gets more subtle. Now, remember that the ego mind identity is not going to be. Let me preface by saying the human character, the ego mind identity, is not going to be able to do this, because for the ego mind identity, it's this or it's that. It's right or it's wrong. It's black or it's right. It's good or it's bad. Right? It can never hold two seemingly contradictory truths at the same time. It can't. It's always this or that, and this is the whole duality and dualistic nature of the conditioned mind. Okay. Well, the self, the I am, is everything. It can hold a million different simultaneous truths at the same time and have no problem with it, because it is everything. And that's why I'm saying what we're about to talk about, the ego mind identity cannot do. But I don't write these books, and I don't incarnate on earth for the ego mind identity. I incarnate for the exact opposite reason. Okay. So this agendaless drive has to do with looking or working towards a specific outcome instead of, it's not the pursuit of happiness, it's the happiness of pursuit. Let that land for a second. Okay, so that kind of says it all, but I'll explain anyway. So it's not the pursuit of happiness, it's the happiness of pursuit. Okay, so in other words, we have some kind of desire, a wish, desire, right? Okay. Uh, I write books, so I'll just use that as an example, right? Okay. So I'm going to write another book, right? Whatever. Okay. So what I do is I just allow that flow to take over, and I'm not looking for an outcome. Let me give another. I just stay in flow, stay in flow, stay in flow. And then at some point, holy shit, the book's done. Wow. Okay, great. It's kind of like when you drive, you're going to drive to the store, right? If you are constantly looking and marking and checking how many miles, okay, 3.4 miles. Okay, we have another. Okay, now we're at 3.5 miles. Okay, another. You cannot enjoy the ride. I mean, that would be the worst backseat driver in the history, right? Are we there yet? Are we there? I used to do that as a kid. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there? Right? Okay. So once you have some passion, whatever that is, and it doesn't matter, right? Then it's about expressing it, sharing it, expressing it, right? It's not about being tied to an outcome or a result. Now, what you're gonna realize, it's just like setting your GPS to go to the store. You're gonna let your intention to get to the store is just gonna carry you. If you're not tethered to this and that and him and her and this, if you're not tethered to all these different things, to these different goals, if you're not tethered to any of these things, your intention will literally carry you right through. And this is this agendaless drive. Because the motivation is coming from within you, it never wanes. When our motivation is derived from something outside of ourselves, it's not predictable. And you never know when it's going to disappear, when it's going to come and go. But if the drive is coming from you and then you don't set these markers that you have to keep checking upon, what you'll realize is that your intention will literally carry you through the whole thing. And now all of a sudden you're in this flow state. And there isn't really an effort. It's just about being present and being in flow with what you're doing, right? It's like dancing, right? You don't think about anything. It's not really an effort. It's like, if I do this and do this, wait, what's my next one? Wait, I have a goal to be able to move both my arms at the same time when I'm dancing. So wait a minute, time out. Let me focus on this. Let me map this out because I need the how, I need the when, I need the... No one fucking does that, right? Don't do that with your life. Don't do that with your life. Watch what happens. Watch this effortless flow, this ability to create without limitations, because it's not contingent upon an outcome. It's not the pursuit of happiness. It's the happiness of pursuit. And when we reverse that, we'll actually start to experience what I'm talking about. This is this agendaless drive. This is how you're able to stay in flow and not wane. It's always there. It's not about, okay, now it's this, and now it's this, and now it's this, now it's this. Those things just come and go. I haven't celebrated a milestone. I don't remember the last time I did. And there have been lots of milestones achieved. First off, not dying was one of them, right? That was one, right? Walking and then writing books and bestsellers and blah, 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 right? I don't celebrate those things. It's not, I don't ignore them, or I don't pretend they're not occurring. I'm aware that they are occurring. But
no pomp required.
No, it's just this flow. It's just this flow, and the markers, the achievements, these are the things that actually stop flow.
And I can feel people's EMIs quaking in their boots as you're saying and describing this flow.
Yeah. Well, there's another way to say this that will really piss people off. Okay? And I used to say this all the time.
So we probably shouldn't mention it then.
Yeah, right.
We're definitely gonna go there. Sorry.
Yeah. So let's get ready to be triggered, right? So this is a trigger warning. Okay, I used to say this. I stopped saying it. Then every now and then I'll bring it back. But it's right in line. This is the truth. Okay, whether we want to see it, recognize it, work with it or not, that's up to everybody else. Planning is for cowards. Planning is for cowards. Now, that's heavy. Now, I'm not saying that if you're going to have a vacation, we all look for ways to say, wait, but what about this, RJ? I got you with this one. I'm not talking about you want to take a vacation with your wife and kids that you don't call the airline and plan a week ahead of time. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is if you're mapping out everything, right, you are actually confining everything. You're confining yourself. So it's kind of like just have this passion, have this determination, right? Follow your intention. Forget the how is none of your business. Let the universe provide it for you. And this is what I mean about planning is for cowards. It shows a true lack of direct connection with the self, which means a direct connection in faith. I'm not talking about belief. I'm not talking about
can we
belief.
talk about that, please? Can we talk about that, please?
Yeah.
Because thoughts, beliefs, and faith. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can we please talk about
Well,
that?
those things don't, so faith and belief don't have anything to do with each other. I realize we use them interchangeably, but that's because we don't have a tangible metaphysical understanding of what those words mean. Okay, belief, right? A belief by definition is anything whose landing spot lies outside of yourself. For example, I believe in a heaven out there. There's nothing outside of yourself. There's nothing outside of the self. There's nothing outside of your consciousness. Beliefs, by their very metaphysical definition, are completely and utterly disempowering because the energy is leaving you into something out there that doesn't even exist, into an out there where there's only here now. So beliefs are disempowering. Beliefs are for children. Beliefs are for when we don't know, right? You still believe in Santa Claus, right? Still believe in the Tooth Fairy? Probably not, Emmerich, right? Why? You've outgrown them. Okay, right? Or maybe not. I don't know. You might, but anyway. Okay, now faith is the opposite of that. My friend, faith is the direct interconnection with something greater than just yourself. And faith can move mountains, literally. And faith can heal, literally. So faith and belief have nothing to do with each other. And beliefs are just a string of justified thoughts.
Do you
That's
know
all they
where
are.
Yeah. Do you know where I get tripped up here is you can actually, sorry, I keep interrupting. Try my
It's
best
okay.
not to. Thoughts you can cultivate to cultivate beliefs, which understandably we can see the sort of maya that's creating and the sort of illusion that it is now at this juncture in the conversation. And yet there is such a programmatic way about going about establishing a belief, which is, unfortunately, but it is handy. Whereas with faith, how do you go about developing faith? It seems like it's either one of those things you've either got the grace to have it or you don't.
Oh, okay, I understand. Okay, faith can absolutely be developed. Faith is in direct correlation to you trusting yourself. Because by trusting in yourself, you're going to be trusting in the greater reality, trusting in the universe, trusting in God, however you want to phrase that. So faith can absolutely be developed, and it's tangible. When we know something to be true, we know it. I have complete faith in whatever, right? That's tangible. Now try to feel a belief. Go ahead and do it. What does that feel like?
Feels wispy.
Right?
Yeah.
That's because there's nothing there. That's because they're made up. Just like thoughts. They're made up. And that's why they say there's nothing there. There really isn't. Faith and belief have nothing, and we use them interchangeably. It's like pain and suffering, right? We say pain and suffering as if they're one thing. They don't even have anything to do with each other. Believe me, I'm telling you, I've been to the depths of pain, and suffering is optional. It's absolutely optional. Suffering happens through identification. I still feel pain, and I felt tremendous, right? I mean, to where you're going to lose it, right? But suffering, Amrit, is the identification with what we are aware of. And that's how you suffer, right? Awareness, like a time-lapse camera, right? The I am, what we are, awareness, attention, single pointedness of focus, right? Given energy in order to create. Okay, so the I am is like, as an analogy, it's like a time-lapse camera, right? It watches, it observes, but it doesn't identify with what's going on. The time-lapse camera doesn't give a shit over what it's watching. And it's also not affected by it. Neither are you. So in other words, we don't ever really suffer. Get ready to be triggered. We don't ever really suffer. The ego-mind identity does, but you're not the ego-mind identity. The ego-mind identity definitely suffers, but you're not the ego-mind identity. You know how I know? Because you're aware of it, because you can tell me about your character. You can tell me about your character's thoughts. You can tell me about your character's emotions. You can tell me about the experiences that your character has had, the bodily sensations, the experiences that the body has had. And that's proof that you're not that, because you're something that's aware of it. If you were actually that, you wouldn't be able to tell me about it. So this is what I mean about pain and suffering. They don't even have anything to do with each other. Suffering has to do with identification. Pain is inevitable. In physical reality, we're all going to experience it. Hopefully not, terrible. But in other words, that's going to happen, period. But the suffering is 100% optional. And I talk about that all the time. I was in a level of agony I didn't know existed. My spine, it was like being stabbed in the spine nonstop. And it radiated all the way down to the point where I just was going to throw up. The pain was so intense that I literally just wanted to vomit. And this wasn't like every now and then. This was perpetual. Like it didn't stop, right? So the detachment that was required to be able to do these things and to have this clarity, I realized that suffering has to do with the identification with this. I definitely am aware of great pain, but I'm not the pain. So therefore, I don't suffer this. I don't suffer it. Now, when we can, in general, when we can start working this way, there won't be anything that can stop you. There won't be anything that can stop you, including permanent paralysis or this or that. I don't give a shit what it is, because you'll realize you're just the awareness. It's not touching you. It doesn't touch you. You're fine. You can work right through this. I don't care what it is. You can work right through it. It's when you identify with the thoughts, the emotions, the bodily sensations, the experiences the body has, therefore the experiences. This, my friend, this is the key to liberation. This is what I'm saying right now. This is the key to liberation. This non-identification. Period. This is what sets the I am free. This. And nothing else, by the way. Not some magical bullshit, we're going into 5D and the Galactic Federation will do it and all this other garbage, right? It's always self-mastery. That's what does it. And by embodying what it is that you and I are talking about, having the mental knowledge of it is useless. It's absolutely useless. The only thing that causes change and transformation is action. That's it. And nothing else. You can understand the mysteries of the universe if you like. And anyway, you can understand the mysteries of the universe if you like, but if you don't take different actions, your life will never change. Never. And you could actually have all the mysteries of the universe solved in your own mind. But if you don't take different actions than you did yesterday, your life will be exactly the same. This is the trap of mentalizing our existence. This is the trap. And this also has to do with attention and being distracted. So they've made it so instead of taking action, our goal is to mentally understand. So we'll spend lifetime after lifetime and all this stuff going on just trying to mentally understand what is really happening. That isn't going to change anything. It's the actions that we take. So they distract you by information because you've been told that the key is to mentally understand. But just by mentally understanding, you're still paralyzed. You haven't taken any actions. That's the key, is the actions that you take. And it's the only thing that matters, Amber.
Hey there, Inspired Souls. Here's someone from our community on the Inspired Circle sharing about her experience on the inside.
Meeting with Gary Zukov was one of the most important moments of my life. There's a couple times where he was just talking us through something and it just hit. And I think it's because we shared the same space with him. Because you watch a lot of people online and it doesn't feel the same as when you're sharing space with somebody. Like that moment, that memory, that one little tick in time. It does feel very different once you have that kind of awakening and remembering. Different people are different stages of their awakening. So when I start talking in a certain way, it sounds kind of nutty. And so I can talk very freely among my circle members and feel that I'm heard and validated and welcomed. Everybody's been so nice and open and non-judgmental. We're all being brought together in some magical way. I just look forward to more connections and what we can do with it. I would say that if you're curious about joining Circle or you feel that there's a calling to a community of like-minded people, that you should click the link down below and join. And it's super easy and super friendly and very affordable. And I would definitely recommend it.
actions based on belief seem worlds apart from actions based on faith now. And I
Yeah.
think you mentioned earlier the attention, actions, faith, sort of attention, anchoring your attention. And there was a question that opened up there for me around attention and intention, because you said your intention can guide you through the flow, back to the point where planning is cowardice. It's allowing the courage to follow and be guided by your intention, allow your attention to be placed on your intention there. Um, yeah, I mean, EMI quaking in the boots again, to be honest.
Yeah, Emirates. So everything that we're talking about is the opposite of everything that we've been told in terms of how to operate. So of course it's going to be like, what? Ego mind identity is going to be like, what? What? This is the antidote. This is what we're talking about. These books, these classes, these understandings, these enlightened metaphysical truths. This is the antidote to all this stuff. It's the actions that you take. Yeah.
For the audience member that's tuning in, that's finding it challenging to let go of the control of the EMI and learn to focus their attention on the intention and trust in the flow that you're inviting people into, what would you say to them?
Yeah, that's just a choice. There's nothing actually, and this will piss people off. That's okay. There's nothing difficult about it. It's just a choice, right? So should I have steak or should I have shrimp? Oh, that is so difficult. Is it? Why is that a difficult choice? It's just a choice. No one's got a gun to someone, I'm assuming. No one's got a gun to someone's head. No one's being held hostage. So it's literally just choose something else. And if we say to ourselves, that is so hard, that is a choice to believe in that thought. Do we understand how free we are? Do we understand that the law of freedom is one of the eternal and immutable laws of the existence, and it's always in force, it's always in play? We are simply choosing to say that's difficult. That is a choice. We're simply choosing to say this is going to be so hard, this is going to take so long. That is also a choice to say that to yourself. Everything is a choice, and none of them have any more gravitas than the other choice. It's just how much we imbue each one. As an example, I was on a flight with this person next to me was drinking like crazy. They were ordering a drink after, and I'm like, okay, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I could pick up, severe fear of flying, right? I mean, some people have that. Okay, so this lady was, I mean, she was numbing herself. Anyway, I was surprised they kept giving her. Anyway, so we hadn't even taken off yet, right? And she turns to me. And she looks at me and she goes, these things go down. These things go down. Right? So I just look at her, right? I figure I'm not going to fuel that, right? I'm not going to say anything, right? And I'm not going to battle her, so whatever. So now she's having that thought, clearly, continuously, right? And she's torturing herself with that thought, obviously, right? These things go down, these planes go down, these things, they crash, these things go down, right? So I just kind of turn away, right? And I look out the window, and then I have the same thought as her. And I say to myself, these things go down. And because I didn't imbue it with all this meaning and weight and gravitas, I could shift right off the thought. That's it, my friend. That's it. So when someone says, and they're being honest, right? This is difficult. RJ, this is hard. Or Amrit, this is hard. It's not. It's not. That is a choice to imbue all of that with so much weight, so much gravitas, and now you are making it difficult. It's not actually difficult. You are choosing to make it difficult. Now, this forces people, and some people don't like it, that's okay. This forces people to be self-responsible. And they don't want to. They'd rather be a victim. They rather blame the president or the government or the, whatever, the reptilians and this and that and whatever, right? They don't want to be self-responsible. Okay, then don't. But that too is a choice. So when we work with the law of freedom, right, it changes everything for people. And it's so simple to realize this. If we don't imbue it so much, all thoughts are equal in weightlessness, Amber. They're all as light as a feather, all of them. It's if we keep imbuing it, Then it gets heavier. And then pretty soon we have this thought and we can't move past it. Oh, you don't understand. Oh, well, no, we do understand. And it's a choice to imbue it and give it so much gravitas. And without doing that, you'll be free of that thought instantaneously.
There is this part in the book where early on in the book you refer a lot to knowing, and later on one of the traps that we mentioned before, the EMI itself, time, and then knowledge is one of them. And it just, yeah, it's sort of stuck with me a little bit because the knowing is one of my deepest fascinations in life, like 100%. Like it's just there's a knowing, even as a guide or a coach or a mentor, whatever you want to call it, people come in and it's like, why do you want to do this? And it's like, and then you dig beneath the surface and it's like, I don't know. There's a knowing, and I'm like, okay, now we're onto something.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the knowing. It's like a cellular, bone deep thing, but it's interesting because they both have the word know, but knowledge is like lives here out in the belief things, unimbued, and knowing is over here, and it's like that. It's almost misleading. The fact that they both have the word know in there, but knowledge is out there and knowing is over here. I just wanted to hear you sort of articulate that to us because I think it'd land for me deeper hearing it from you.
Yeah. So I always phrase it as so-called knowledge, right? Which is about as big a slap in the face as I could give the word knowledge by calling it so-called knowledge, right? So, right, as we talked before about a string of thoughts, a string of justified thoughts as beliefs, and then this masquerades as knowledge, and this is how we get the false conceit of authority. And now we start to see how the whole hierarchical system is start to be built by itself by we start to see this, right? Okay. So the only real knowledge is of self because self is the only thing that's real. Now, when I say real, I mean it's the only thing that endures. Okay? Knowledge, or so-called, that's my energetic slap in the face. So-called knowledge, right, is always contextual. Right? Like I don't know why I always think how to hotwire a car. I don't know why that always comes to me. I don't know what that's about. I haven't stolen any cars, but maybe I want to. Okay. So knowledge is always contextual, right? Which means it's fleeting and it's not eternally applicable, which means ultimately it's not real because it comes and goes if it's contextual. Knowledge of self or gnosis is what wisdom is, and that always applies because it's not contextual, because it is what is. And that's why I say that the only real knowledge is knowledge of self, because self is the only thing that's real. Everything else comes and goes. And it's our putting our attention on so-called knowledge will only actually increase our personhood, which is really our ego mind identity, which is really this transient character that we have misaligned ourselves with, the electromagnetic interference that actually builds itself from so-called knowledge, right? The ego mind identity is AI. The ego mind identity is artificial intelligence. It's not real intelligence. Real intelligence is intuition. And real intuition is knowing. And that's exactly what AI isn't. It just gives predictions. It gives consensus. It gives opinion by consuming all other opinions. It doesn't actually know anything. Just like your conditioned mind, which is always ravenous for information, so-called knowledge, ravenous for more and more and more. Why? It doesn't know anything. It doesn't know anything. Now, the self knows. Now, the key is to be connected to the inner knowingness. And this knowingness flows to you on the river of intuition, and it wafts up and informs your mind. And then that's how you know. So we've reversed the process. Instead of reaching out for so-called knowledge, right? We're doing the exact opposite. We're going within and letting this knowledge of self waft up, and then we can actually get a whiff of the aroma of the self, which contains the knowingness itself. We've reversed the whole process. And so now instead of increasing personhood, right, we've done the exact opposite. We have unveiled, we have Clark Kented it, we have unveiled the self.
Yeah, I can feel the metaphor of like this font of knowing that's just ever flowing within, just come alive, touch wood. It's really beautiful. Thank you for clarifying that, RJ.
Sure.
It'd be remiss of me to sort of, as we're drawing to a close on this podcast, which is always a sadness with you. It's like, because I honestly, yeah, could listen to you forever. And well, you mentioned law of perfection, law of attention. It's interesting as well because learning and they all dovetail. I'm sure there's like this beautiful symbiosis within each of it. There's no real hierarchy. But it seems like the law of attention, the natural sort of place you start to land on the other side of that is this law of resonance on the other side of it a little bit. It's like once you've sort of moved through this, it's like, oh, knock, knock, next law of resonance, because once you've started working with your attention, your resonance is now becomes this thing that you become aware of, I guess. And it's interesting because there is, like you said, a part of the book which goes into manifestation, which is interesting as well, because manifestation has space, but then you talk about how that's, yeah, but then also resonance is like this this is actually how it's done. So I just wanted to afford some closing remarks and bandwidth on how attention then leads to resonance and the power of resonance to actually create the life or live the life that's most aligned.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They flow into one another, and that's because they're eternal and immutable. So existence at its core operates with certain eternal and immutable laws that are always in force. You can't escape them. They're literally part of the underpinnings of existence itself, right? And by the way, that'll be my next book. But anyway, so
Awesome.
when we start to understand what these things are, we start to understand how there is a way to become not just knowledgeable about them, because that's not enough, but most of us don't even know about these laws. But one, to become aware of them. And then the next thing is to embody them. And then the next thing is to harness them for your own creation, right? So when we get caught in a riptide, and I have, Kauai, right? The one thing they all tell you, all the natives say, hey, listen, RJ, if that grabs you, don't swim against it. You won't make it. Don't do it. Let the current, use the current to actually take you and release you. So we want to have knowledge, alignment, and then harness these eternal immutable laws in order to be in alignment with the underpinnings of existence, and therefore create the reality that we truly desire by working in harmony with how reality actually functions itself. So when we talk about these laws and how they all just dovetail into one another, and you can't have one without the other, and you can't escape one and then think you're only going to be dealing with one, they're always in force. But when we talk about manifestation, right? Whether it's money or health, that part doesn't matter, by the way. But whether it's money or it's health or it's love or it's friendship, who gives a shit? Those are just tweaks downstream. We manifest based upon who we are, not what we want. And this starts to put us in the right direction. So the metaphysics of this, it's very simple, right? The universe, or the ethers, the energies, however you want to say that, right? Okay. It's existence, or the multiverse is a multi-frequential, multi-dimensional hall of mirrors designed for self-mastery. It's the greatest thing ever thought into create, from my perspective. And I've been everywhere. This is the greatest thing ever invented. Okay. So that being said, this reality, and all these realities in this God's multiverse, is designed for everything to reflect back to you, your state of being and your state of consciousness, or your state of self-realization or lack of self-realization. So what that means is, whatever you're emanating, so if you want something, right? I want $1 million. I want whatever. Who cares? I want something. Let's really look at this. If you're in a state of want, I want. Okay. So that's the frequency that you're holding. That's the frequency that you're embodying. That's the frequency that you're emanating. That's what you're broadcasting. So what is the universe going to do with that? It's going to match and amplify wanting. Oh, so you want? Here's a fuck shit ton of wanting. Here's what it's like. Not the manifestation of what you desire, my friend. because you're not emanating the frequency of the manifestation. You're emanating the wanting. So if we stay in a state of wanting, all you'll ever get is more wanting. The universe will show you endless things of wanting, but not having, not possessing, not embodying. Now, just this as an example will start to turn most of the bullshit teachings that are on this planet currently about manifestation, and will put us in the direction of true metaphysics, how metaphysics actually work, right? You must embody that aspect of yourself. We can't manifest anything that we are not already the embodiment of. Just let that land. We cannot manifest anything that we are not already the embodiment of. So we must be emanating and embodying that specific frequency. Now, if we can't emanate, if we can't manifest anything that we are not already the embodiment of, if we go deeper, that means that we already are the emanation of all the manifestations of all of our desire, meaning our desire and its manifestation are not separate, meaning they're actually one thing. It's our conditioned mind that separates them and makes it conditional. So in other words, it separates desire from the manifestation and makes the manifestation conditional based upon beliefs, concepts, ideologies, the economy, this, that. I have to have this first. I have to have that. This has to be lined up. This has to be lined up. I have to do this and this and this. Bullshit. This is a lie. This is a metaphysical lie. Desire and manifestation are not separate. So when we have a desire, we have to realize that all I desire is given. And now we embody that. And now you can throw logic and linearity out the door. Now it's not about this process. It's not. Now this is how instantaneous manifestation can actually occur. And I talk about this in my classes. I've talked about things that have occurred with me and with students. And I'm talking about real instantaneous manifestation, including wealth, including health. I don't care what it is. The love of your life walks into the room the next day. I mean, this is how you do it. They're not separate. So you must embody the frequency. You must embody that aspect of yourself. And then you can forget the process. Forget the how. The how is none of your business. When you emanate that, the universe will match and amplify. And then you don't go through this process. There isn't this wishing and wanting and hoping and praying. And let me get my vision boards out and affirm and affirm and affirm. All this other, I mean, this is childish. I mean, this is not how metaphysics work, right? So we manifest based upon who we are, period. Period. We don't need to complicate it. And we don't need to separate the desire and the manifestation because they're not separated. Remember, the conditioned mind makes the manifestation conditional. Just let that land for a second. The conditioned mind makes the manifestation of the desire conditional, and it puts all these things in the way. Okay, so I'll be able to get married once I have enough money, and then once I have this, I'll find the right person once I have this one. Or I'll make all this money once the economy gets better, and once I have the right contacts, and once I have the right marketing plan, and then just see what we're doing. It actually works the opposite. It literally works the opposite. If anybody takes anything away from all that I just rambled, we manifest based upon who we are, not what we want. And that alone will start to change everything for everybody.
RJ, there's a whole podcast on that law alone in itself waiting to have, but I'm so excited for the next book. I will put a link to this book in the show notes below for people to go get. Last question, I guess, if I may be so indulgent, is just metaphysically, obviously this book has emerged at this time. Yeah. Why do you think this book was so important to emerge, or why do you think this book emerged at this particular moment in time for us? Law of attention.
Oh, well, that's a great question. Okay, it's probably a couple of things. As you know, what I've said about the so-called spiritual community, ill-advising people, putting these headlines out there, drawing attention, fear-based attention, connecting with that, holding that frequency, emanating, and then building that reality. And that's why I say prophecy is actually a user's manual to how to bring about these things. So that was one of it. And also sort of the whole political realm about allowing ourselves to be lied to and distracted and hearing the things that we want to hear and putting our attention on these things. And so I just felt it was time for us to really understand one of the eternal that's never talked about. It's just never talked about. And now I know why, because it's been used against us. That's why it's not talked about. So I feel I'm responsible to break the matrix into tiny million fucking little pieces. And so one way to do that is to understand the law of attention, because all the power is in our attention, because where your attention goes, your energy flows, and where your energy flows, it grows. It's that simple. It's not more complicated. It's not more complicated. So we put our attention on what it is that we want to grow. We want to grow our relationship with our husband or wife. We want to grow our relationship with our kids. We want to grow our relationship with our business. We want to grow our relationship with ourself, our relationship with our God. Put your attention on it. It's that simple. And keep it there. Keep it there. Don't allow yourself. Don't justify, well, I got to scroll. I got to do. No, you don't. That's a choice. That is a choice. This is going to come about. The change that we actually desire for ourselves is going to come about through courage, determination, self-control, and self-discipline. Don't let anybody fucking tell you otherwise. They're full of shit. That's actually what it takes. It's not about we're all going to 5D. It's not about any of this garbage. Absolute garbage. Wait till people find out the truth about what they've been listening to. I'm not even going to go into it today, right? What we talk about are tangible truths and actions to take. I map out everything to do, literally. Humanity doesn't have to figure it out. This is the guidebook. This is the treasure map to manifestation, to health, to deprogramming your mind, to mastering yourself. This is the step-by-step process, and it starts with attention. It absolutely starts with attention. In a lot of ways, it starts and ends with attention. And attention is the new oil. And when we start to understand how much energy we're giving to realities and experiences that we don't want, that's what we're doing. We're embodying it. We're holding that frequency. We're emanating it. And we're building these dystopian timelines. That's literally what we're doing. So it's time for us to realize the truth and operate in the way that I know that we are capable of doing and that I know that we do. That we're capable of doing. So this was the time. The law of attention was absolutely needed. Just like supercharged self-healing came out when COVID came out. What a coincidence, right? The law of attention is when we're being distracted endlessly in order to create dystopian timelines. What a coincidence that it's coming out now, right? All in divine timing, right? And when your own divinity is driving the bus, everything comes out in divine timing. And this is our birthright. The only thing I want for humanity is to realize the truth, that they are free. They just don't realize it. Their only bondage is in not realizing it. The only bondage is in the story that they tell themselves. I don't have a choice. Now we start to understand about choice, that freedom is already there to even choose. So I want the best for humanity in ways that I can't put into words. I absolutely can't put into words. Now, all I can do is embody it and teach it. I can't do it for anyone. If I could have done it for everyone, I would have done it a million years ago. Without question. No one would have asked me. I would do it. It doesn't work that way. What I am allowed to do is come here whenever I feel like, literally, embody this, put myself through hell so I can prove everything that I say. Do the impossible, which doesn't exist at all. Do the impossible as a permission slip for everyone to do the impossible for themselves. That's what this is about. The only thing I care about is the evolution of consciousness. It's not even that I care about it, and it's not even that I'm obsessed with it. It's so far beyond that. It's in my every breath. Literally. So the law of attention comes out at the absolute paramount time. Get the book and utilize the teachings. Watch what happens to your life. Put them into practice. This isn't information. Do what it says and watch what happens. And the proof will be in your life.
Pretty cheeky as well. Some of the meditations in there last less than a second.
Right? Right? Yeah.
I mean, it's made for the modern era and the modern woe and modern woe man, all of us. It's yeah. Oh,
By the
sacred
way,
currency. Pay attention.
Emret, I
Wow.
got another instantaneous meditation magic trick, right? So we know some of those, right? Pretend you just arrived here, no past, no future, right? There's another one that we can all use. So every time a thought pops in, just say, not now,
Oh,
and watch the thought just disappear, right? And then the next thought, same thing, not now,
wow. That's cool. I like it.
right? So these teachings, right? My friend, they break the spell. They break the black magic spell upon our consciousness in 1 second. And I don't want anyone to think that we don't have the supreme white magic, because we got it. And now it's right back in the hands that it belongs to, yours. And now you have to use it. It's not enough to know it. You have to use it. You have to be it. You have to embody it. You have to live it. And that's what this is about. The true teachings of liberation, manifestation, healing, deprogramming your mind are here. Take advantage of it, use it, and watch what happens in your life. It's plain and simple. It works.
Pay attention. Sacred currency. RJ Spina. Touch wood. Brother. I mean, yes, thank you so much for this podcast, for the book, for the work that you're doing. And as you know me, grateful for you, brother. Thank you so much for you, the way who you are, what you do, the work you do in the world. And yeah, I mean, I'm just really grateful for you, man. But obviously, thank you for your time and energy. Like you said, you don't do podcasts anymore. So that honestly means a lot to me. And honestly, you mean a lot as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, looking back to just our first episode and the multiple episodes we've done since then, every single time, it's almost a really poignant mirror to just see who I was when I first got to interview you and, had that opportunity and where I was at in my journey. And as I've evolved, this evolution, I get to see myself in the mirror that is you. And I just really hold that quite dearly. So thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate you.
Oh, Amrit, I felt that, and you're most welcome. You're most welcome. As I said, I don't do podcasts anymore for a reason, but I'll do yours. Just continue to be authentic. Continue to, and that's why we're talking, because you're not full of shit. So, to put it bluntly, you're not. This is really you, and this is really me, right? So just continue that, and this certainly won't be our last conversation. And it's always a lot of fun. You and I have a lot of fun when we talk. So it was my
I feel like it
pleasure.
might be a bit too much fun, given the topics that we cover. But
Yeah.
thank you for your blessings.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. I appreciate it very
Till
much.
next time. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
You, inspired soul, human being, you've made it through to the end of another incredible episode. Thank you so much for your inspirations to evolve. It is such an honor to be your brother walking this path by your side. You've obviously enjoyed this video, so please do give it a like and a thumbs up. It votes for content like this being spread around the internet further, farther, wider, and richer. Thank you so much for supporting spirituality in a time like this. To all of you that are subscribed to the channel, thank you so much for your incredible love and support. Like I like to say, everything you see around here is powered and empowered by your subscription to the channel. So thank you so much for your incredible love and support. To all of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do take a moment. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the button below is lighting up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution. Please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, and join the movement, join the community, spreading love, positivity, clarity, and wisdom like this around the planet together. Thank you so much in advance for doing so. And to continue your inspirations flowing onwards, upwards, and inwards, on screen now, episodes for you to take your journey further. So go on, take your pick and make your click. I'll see you in the next one. I'll see you there.